Dobry den.
Nice. Hi, everybody.
It is good to catch up with all of you, and we just wanted to give a review of our trip. We just got back a few days ago from Ukraine. This was a great trip. People ask us, how was it? And they know that's a loaded question. We always say that it's bittersweet. Incredible time in ministry that we were able to have over the course of three weeks and some days. But it obviously is very bitter as well because of the struggle that Ukraine is under and the stress. And the stress has grown. It's sort of like a pressure cooker as there's more variables and more pressure, whether it's from Russia or just internal cultural things that they're trying to work through as a people. It's difficult, and the morale is different both among the civilian and the military population, and so it is bitter in that way, but it is sweet to see God's hope and light move in dark places, as he often does. The darker it is, the more even a single candle lights up a room, and so we were very honored to be there.
It's also just really good to be with people you care about when they're suffering. I always kind of liken it to like when someone that you know or that you love is sick and like in the hospital. That's where you want to be. You want to be like in the hospital with them, going through it. It's just easier even on you, like emotionally and psychologically, when you're with that person. So It's always easier for us when we're there with our people than when we're here and like so far away from them.
Yeah. So we flew into Krakow, as we often do now, and made our way through Lviv. We stayed overnight, and we ended up with Alexei and his family in Vinnytsia, which is sort of central Ukraine. And we were there doing ministry for a couple of days with his youth group, and I preached at his church, and we did some music and that kind of thing. And then we went with Alexei south to Odessa to meet up with Zhenya, and when Zhenya and Alexei get together, it's always hilarious because they're very funny together. And then we started meeting with different troop units in and around Odessa, and also families Bria will share in a second. I met this amazing guy. His name is Pavlo or Paul. He speaks good English, and he's actually a Marine by training in the Ukrainian army. But he has become a chaplain and working with sort of the group of chaplains that we find ourselves with often.
Very young guy, right?
Very young. He's got a young daughter. Amazing guy. Loves Jesus. Loves sharing the gospel. And so he's sort of the assistant to another military chaplain, and they're in and out of really difficult places. And so I got to have he writes worship music. He's a great musician. So that was a really special time. Didn't know that I was going to meet him, but God ordained that. So we've been chatting back and forth this week, which has been great as well. So we are in and around Odessa and
for a few days, and then we moved on to the Kherson area.
Right.
For a little bit longer. But while we were in Odessa, we actually met with a group of families of fallen Ukrainian soldiers. We've met with this group actually before. It might have been 2 years ago or so. Yeah. It's a group that meets together regularly as sort of a support group, but they're kind of backed by a pastor, military. I think he's a chaplain.
But they get to meet at his church, right?
I believe so, yeah. So it's kind of led by a Christian, and on a Christian kind of basis, even though most of the families are not, quote, born again Christians. They might have a knowledge of God or a tradition sort of church, but that's very cool. And so it was really neat to be able to see them again and see some familiar faces, and just be able to cry with them again. They recently in Odessa, they opened sort of this in their main central park. They opened this alley of fallen warriors recently, and so the wives and some of the mothers really wanted to take us down there and show us kind of the plaques, not plaques, but
the
posters
of their sons and husbands.
Yeah, and even fathers. There were some kids too
Yeah.
who wanted to show us their dads, and that was just really heartbreaking. There was this little girl who took me over to, I'll get emotional talking about it, but just took me over and was like, "This is my dad." And just get to hug them and cry with them and put flowers in memory of their people. So sorry, maybe you should talk.
No, it was very moving. It was very moving. We actually did a concert. It was a little impromptu. There was a big gathering for these wives, moms, kids, at like a hotel in Odessa or in
a church. I'm sorry. I'm totally sorry. You're talking about different second.
That was
second one.
Yeah, there was a whole day, and it was just a really special time for us to do that. I
forgot about that actually.
Yeah, it was. It's hard. It's really hard. It's the other side that you don't see.
Jesse puts it really well when he tells people about these trips. He calls us, what do you call us? Pain suckers?
Or despair suckers.
Despair suckers. Like, that's sort of the ministry that the Lord has given us at this season in Ukraine, is to sort of go in 2 or 3 times a year and just try to suck out all of the despair from the people that we meet and replace it with the hope of the Lord and the joy of the Lord. And so it's cool to see that happening before our own eyes when we're with these groups, whether it's soldiers on the front lines or these families who have lost their loved ones. Usually at the start of the meeting, you can just kind of see the weight on everyone and just the despair and the pain and the trauma. It's like just a burden on them. Their shoulders are stooped and their faces are downcast. And then it's just very cool to see throughout the course of our time with them that their shoulders begin to straighten and their chins lift. And I don't know, I am so emotional. And we're just very honored to be that for them.
Yeah, there was a, just as one example, I wanted to share about Pavlo, but along the front, as we moved from Kherson from Odessa towards Kherson and much closer to sort of the zero line, we met with a group of men, as they often are. There's groups with women too, but this particular group had all men. And it's an abandoned house that they have permission to stay in, and that's their headquarters. And there was a medal ceremony right in this little cinder block room. No electricity except for a generator. They made us some tea, and there's a light bulb hanging. And there was a medal ceremony for bravery for a couple of their soldiers. And then artillery fire started coming in our way because this group of men are all stationed in other places around the front, but then their vehicles all converge into one area where they are going to have the ceremony where we are going to be. And the Russian surveillance drones see that and they start firing that way. But it was just an amazing time because these guys, they're on the front. They literally that night were going to go and work. And but there was 20 of them, 25 of them crammed into this little room, and to watch the ceremony. And then their commander is an amazing guy, very special,
very
brave.
Cool story. His name's Denise. His call sign is Artist, and we were told that he's actually a pretty well-known, famous actor, both in film and in theater. And 3 years ago, when Russia began its full-scale invasion into Ukraine, he left show business and went to the front to fight to defend his family. And Pastor Zhenya told us he has a relationship with this commander, and he told us that he loves and cares about the men that he's commanding so well that they even affectionately refer to him as father, even though he's not really that old. He's probably
40s, maybe?
Late 40s, early 50s maybe.
Yeah.
But he was just it was cool to watch him and his relationship with his men. You could tell he's very respected and loved.
Yeah. So, we were in Kherson for several days. It's a very dangerous place. But we had a great time in some churches there that are meeting some very courageous pastors that are known to Russian leadership, and they want to take out leaders because then the flock will disperse. And so these pastors they're super strong, hilarious types of people. Just so honored to meet with them.
We met one pastor who's come under direct attack from Russians. They destroyed 2 of his vehicles with him and his children in them. Praise the Lord, they all survived, and no one was seriously injured. And then they also destroyed his original church building, but that didn't stop him. And he and his church just moved to a different location, and they continue to meet, and they're literally flowing out of their doors. They have so many people coming. Yeah. The bombs and the danger doesn't stop them or stop with the work that the Lord is doing there, which was very cool to see and huge example for us.
Yeah, that was amazing. So after we were in Kherson, we had a long trip to meet another group of men. That was really special. And then the next morning we took a train north to Kiev, where Bria had set up several meetings with people that she knew, but then also some other things that I didn't know were coming, but that she had planned. They speak a different language, not English, and so I really,
it's beautiful language.
I don't know what's going on often. So.
But while we were on the front, we did want to tell y'all, because so many of you were a part of it. We gave out the patches that Jesse so brilliantly came up with and made. I don't know if you want to share more about that.
So it's sort of tied in. They say peace through victory in both Ukrainian and in
the
English.
Patches do.
The patches. And just being able to talk to the Ukrainian people about peace through victory for their nation. That peace isn't peace without a victory. And then I spoke about that in terms of the gospel as well. And so we were able at the end of each meeting to be able to hand them this representation of what we believe for them as a country, but also what we believe for them in what Jesus did, winning victory over sin and death for our peace. And then to give them these chevron, as they say, or patch, those are sort of sacred exchanges when they give their patches to each other and that kind of thing. It's sort of an identifier. This is who we are, this unit or this platoon or whatever. So that was so cool. It was very, very cool.
Yeah, it was amazing to see how much those patches meant to them. And now just to know that they have those, they wear them, and that it's a reminder to them of the gospel, but then also that they're not forgotten, because I think they feel so alone in their fight. And very forgotten. And so just to see how that encouraged them to tell them, like, yes, Jesse designed them and we made up these patches and brought them, but people in America paid for them because they want you guys to know that you're not forgotten and you're not alone, and people are praying for you. And you could just see visibly how touched they were by that and how much that meant to them. They were so excited to get those patches.
It was very, very cool. Yes, thank you for reminding me. So then we went to Kiev.
And then also we had some medical blankets that I think a lot of you helped pay for as well. They're called Ready Heat blankets, and it was actually just kind of random that I even found out about them. But I was trying to find on the internet where we could buy these blankets, and apparently you cannot buy them anywhere. They only sell to distributors. And so I ended up contacting the company before we left and just saying hey, we're going to Ukraine. They could really use these blankets. Is there any way that we could just buy them from you directly? Because I can't find a distributor near us where I can buy them. And they were so helpful and ended up selling them to us. We ended up raising enough for 8 boxes, I think.
8 boxes.
8 boxes of 8 blankets apiece. So that was, they were very excited to get those. We gave them to medics that we met. And, obviously almost all of them said, we really hope that we won't have to use these, because they're blankets that are used in the case of serious trauma and wounds. So they were like, we really hope we don't have to use them, but they were very thankful to have them in the case that they do need to use them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we went to Kiev.
Then we went to Kiev. Sorry, I jumped ship a little bit too early.
Kiev was very cool. I was able to see some longtime friends of mine who I haven't seen in at least a year probably. And then also there's this girl who I got connected with randomly through social media. I don't know her didn't know her personally. And we've been in touch for probably over 3 years. I think she had originally contacted me before the full-scale invasion, asking, she has sort of this ministry project that she does, and she asked if she could interview us as a couple for her project. And we had planned it, and then the full-scale invasion happened, and we just weren't able to ever make it work. And so this time we were finally able to meet, and I was like, hey honey, you're going to be interviewed. And he's like, what?
Lovely.
But it was very cool, and it's interesting to see another kind of branch of ministry that the Lord is giving to us as a couple, because getting married later in life is something that's been unheard of in Ukraine. Very taboo to not be married by the time you're 25, and even that's like pushing it. So the fact that we got married when we were around 40 is just kind of a revelation to people, like, what? You can get married at 40? And so, singleness is just not something that's really been talked about in the church, and it's sort of always had this taboo, surrounding it, and like it's a bad thing, almost like a sickness that you need to like get fixed from as soon as possible. So the sooner you can get married, the better. So more and more people, since learning, that we got married later in life, more and more people are wanting to talk to us about that, and have us share and encourage other young or not so young people,
medium young,
who are still single, because that is becoming more and more common, not just because, cultural expectations are changing, but also because of the war. More and more people are hesitant to get married and to start families because everything is so unknown, So some people are like, we want to get married as soon as possible, because you never know what can happen. And other people are like, you never know what can happen, so I don't want to get married right now. So we did that interview, and it's about, I think she wrote me today and said it'll probably come out in the next few weeks or so, but it's cool to see how the Lord's kind of opening up doors for that. This is probably one of a handful of interviews that people have wanted to do, either just with me or with both of us, about getting married later in life, and how it's okay to be single, and there's nothing wrong with you if you're single, and the Lord makes everything beautiful, including singleness. And that's been really cool.
Yeah. So we had a great visit in Kiev. Some amazing people. Some of Bria's friends are doing some amazing work in trauma care and providing
training pastors in trauma care.
Yeah, it was very cool stuff. And then we went to Lviv just for 2 or 3 days of just...
That's my hometown, if nobody knows. That's on the far west side of Ukraine.
Yeah, close to Poland. So we had some R&R, and I promptly got sick.
So he was bedridden, and I ran around the whole time seeing friends.
Yeah, it was good for her to do that. I did get out and about a little bit, but then went back into Krakow and flew home. So it was very busy. We probably did, from what our estimations were, we did about 3 concerts a day for 12 days straight. And those could run anywhere from 35, 40 minutes to a couple hours, if I include like, hey, they want to talk, or they can't talk, or
they've made dinner for us.
They made dinner and they want us to hang out and talk, and it really depended on the unit of men and what their schedules were and those kinds of things. Men and women, excuse me. And so there are tiring days, great days. We're just so thankful to the Lord and his Spirit that is alive and active in the men and women that we meet. They are our cherished friends and also incredible examples in kingdom work, that they are faithful through thick and thin, no matter what. They are doing the work of the Lord, regardless of the kingdom that is present here on this earth. They serve the Lord in the kingdom of heaven, and it is very good for us.
And the way to watch the way they also love and serve the people around them, in spite of having their own trauma and their own pain. They seeing their selflessness and just how they put themselves aside and serve just tirelessly the people around them. It's a huge example to us. They're our heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were days of massive amounts of ministry. We were able to take a little bit of relaxing time, but in general, we came back tired, slightly traumatized, but deeply grateful. So thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you for the patches enabling us to do that. Thank you for the blankets enabling us to do that. For everyday stuff, keeping us clothed and fed, and just helping us share the gospel of Jesus to every nook and cranny that we can possibly find, encouraging people in the gospel, especially in Ukraine, where God has sort of sent us out for this point in time in our lives. So we're so thankful. Thank you for each one of you. We love you.
Yeah, y'all are incredible. Thank you.
You're drinking your tea in a war zone, honey.
In a gold, very fancy.
It's very
teacup.
fancy. So what's happening outside?
I don't know. The guys say there's some sort of firefight going on, so
Okay.
we're just waiting.
With our tea.
Our tea.
So we ordered
Sorry.
tea and then things started exploding.
It's true.